What is happening, you YouTube warriors out there? This is Range Day, bro. We got a good one for you today. As you can tell, AR-15 versus AK-47. Which one's best for your first gun? Let's get into it.
She begging me to call that.
Alright, so obviously there's a lot to tackle on this subject. There's no shortage of gun videos out there on the internet that debate this topic, right? It's the age-old question of reliability, functionality versus lightweight, effective, smaller caliber, grain weight, but obviously there's plenty of things to tackle here. We're going to be actually having a multi-part series of AR versus AK for your first gun, and what I'm going to get into is break it down into about 4 or 5 parts. We'll see how it all shakes down, but the first part, what we're going to discuss today, is going to be caliber. And we may double dip on some topics because obviously none of these topics are mutually exclusive of the other. They all kind of build off of each other. So we're going to start with caliber today and get into the 7.62x39 versus the 5.56, which are the two traditional calibers of choice for these platforms. But we're also going to discuss other calibers, converting these platforms to other calibers, what the possibilities are there, magazines, and things of that sort. So let's just get into it. Without further ado, let's start. All right. When talking calibers, it's not going to come as any surprise to you guys who know very much about either platform, which I'm assuming most of you do if you're watching this video. You have the 5.56 and 2.3 in one hand versus the 7.62x39. Now, I'm not a ballistics dummy. This is not a video where I'm going to shoot ballistic gelatin and go over the muzzle energy, none of that. I'm just kind of telling you as a beginner, if these are for a beginner type video, if you're choosing between an AR versus AK-47, a little bit about these calibers. And I'm not going to get into the history or the ballistics as I mentioned, but I want to just talk a little bit about, as a beginner, what you might run into and what you'll be finding as far as magazines, availability, options, things of that sort. So you may have noticed I have some boxes over my left, which we'll get into in a second, but let's first just talk about what it's like to shoot the 7.62 versus the 5.56. So the 7.62x39 round coming out of an AK-47 is definitely more of a buck than the AR-15. And if you've ever shot an AR-15 before, you can attest to the fact that it's not a very scary gun. You know, you shoot it, there's hardly any muzzle flip, especially if you have a break on it, it's almost non-existent. If you have a well-tuned rifle, it's very, very nice and pleasant to shoot. However, I was at the range today and let some of the people, fine folks over at the range at Austin, try out my Bulgarian Arsenal here, which has a milled receiver AK, which is, if you ask anybody, is the Gucci version of the AK because it is double the price. They did comment on how smooth the action was on this guy. Now, we are clear, the safety was on, but we are clear here. You can see the follower plate on your mag pull here, which we'll get into magazines in a second. But regardless, they did comment because they have a lot of standard receiver AKs over at the range at Austin that people rent. I think some of them are full auto, in fact. But they did comment on how smooth this AK was to shoot. And I must say, I don't own any standard receiver AKs, but this guy, it is just such a satisfying, smooth gliding action on this Arsenal here. But it's gonna buck more. That's the moral of the story. You're gonna have a lot more kick, a lot more of you having to get back on the target once you come off, and that's just something you're gonna have to deal with when you're shooting an AK-47. It's gonna have a lot more buck. So first things being first, how pleasant is it to shoot? This AK is quite a bit more of a buck, but also you get the benefits of the stopping power with a 124 grain projectile versus on regular 5.56 or 223 ammo. Typically, you're going to find a 55 grain projectile for range type ammo, whereas these guys, I believe, are 122 grains on the Red Army Standard. So with that being said, let's get into the 223. All right, so the 223 caliber, as you can tell, is quite a bit more slim, shall we say, to be nice. So this guy, this is PMC right here, 5.56, and this is running 55 grains, and it says right on there 3,100 feet per second. As I mentioned, not getting into too much ballistics today, but just take a look at this cartridge. Shooting it becomes very evident that when you're shooting this guy, even out of a short barrel like the 10.3 inch Mark 18 here, you're going to have a lot more control of your shots. Follow-up shots are a lot easier to take. Shooting rapid fire is just much easier to stay on target. I'd say at 10 yards, 20 yards, like we were shooting today at the range, we were able to shoot rapidly into the A zone or the the inner 3 so rings on the target pretty quickly. And even for some of my friends that were here from out of town, being inexperienced shooters, were able to very easily handle this, shooting rapid fire, and able to make accurate shots, which is important. You got to make accurate hits on target. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many grains your bullet is if you're not hitting the target. So this gun is going to be a lot more pleasant to shoot. I'd say for most beginners, you're going to lean towards the 5.56 or 223 caliber. In terms of availability, I'm sure in other areas of the world, I'm going to be wrong in my statement, but in general, here in Texas, it is much easier to get your hands on 5.56 or 223 as far as options go. So right here, I just went over to the chest and just pulled out a couple different boxes of ammo that I had laying around. This PMC I bought from the range itself. This is just some 5.56, 55 full metal jacket boat tail. Range ammo, pretty good, pretty cheap. Those are running about, I would say about 50, 60 cents a round right now. And then from there, we have some Federal Premium, and you can see the price tag on here. I almost paid $30, $28 for this Sierra Gold Medal Match. This is a 223 77 grain open tip boat tail. So this is a match type ammunition. You're gonna pay for it. So 20 rounds is about almost $30, $28 here as of 2021. And I bought this during the high pricing of the pandemic and the riots and yada yada yada. So but I think this is pretty much on par for year-round prices. Maybe it goes down to 24, but regardless, the last one is my home defense ammo, which is Hornady Critical Defense. Hornady Critical Defense. This is 55 grain FTX. You can get into all the nomenclature about what Hornady does, but this guy's pretty much just going to be a nickel coated for more reliable feeding, and going to have a ballistic tip. So great expansion, a defensive type round, a duty type round, I would say, and that's what I keep in my mags for home defense. But those are just three very, very brief examples of the ammunition you can find for the 5.56 and for the AR platform, rather. Moving beyond that to the AK platform, this is pretty much what you're going to get as far as variety goes. You're going to have some hunting rounds, and you're going to have some steel-cased range rounds. So I'm not the first YouTuber. I won't be the last YouTuber to discuss the new Biden sanctions as far as importing ammunition from Russia. I haven't read up on it. I've watched a few videos, but if you guys want more information on that, you can look for it. But as you've heard by now, there has been a new Russian import ban on Russian ammunition and other types of weapons and things like that. So this Red Army standard right here that costs $5.99 when I bought it probably 3 months ago. $5.99 for a box of 20, mind you. Very, very cheap. Now it's steel cased, but still, the AKs run them, they love them. Is no longer going to be able to be imported when Red Army Standard, or I believe it's Century Arms who imports this, goes to reapply for their permit to import Russian manufactured ammunition. So this type of cheap, highly, really easily, or for the most part, easily available ammo is going to be going away. And in fact, it's already started going away. It's hard to find now. But now that those new sanctions are in place, you could pretty much kiss all this sweet Russian 7.62x39 goodbye. Just kiss it goodbye. Here we have some Winchester 123 grain 7.62x39. This is a PowerPoint round. So this is for deer hunting, boar hunting. There's a deer on the cover, but it says deer and wild boar. But you're pretty much limited to a couple hunting rounds. I know Federal makes a fusion hunting round, soft point, but there's really no end to the amount of options you have when it comes to 5.56 223. So as far as availability and variety of ammunition, again, I believe the AR-15 wins. For a new gun owner, you want to go to the gun shop, you're not reloading, you're not shooting super precision matches. You're pretty much just getting a gun for home defense, and or if you ever do need it to defend liberty and the right to pursue happiness, then you have it. So for the new gun owners, I believe that the 5.56 is the way to go. All right, so let's talk about magazines. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know every single type of magazine there is. Pretty much all I've ever had experience with are some cheap Palmetto aluminum mags, which were fine, did just great, and P-mags. And here in both of these rifles, I have, or pistol and rifle rather, I have P-mags. So Magpul makes a great product. Here I have a Gen 3 P-mag with a window on it for my AR-15, and here we have a Gen 3 AK magazine. So as far as magazines go, pretty comparable, I would say. A polymer magazine that's as reliable as the Magpul Gen 3 is on the AK. Both of them are great options. Let me just pull these guys out so you can check them out. And the AK right here, You have the orange follower, but it's a 30 round PMag standard capacity, even though these Arsenals for some reason ship with a 5 round mag. It's kind of ludicrous. But this guy has the steel locking lug on the back there, so that over time you don't have to worry about it. So it's a steel, I believe it's a steel magazine, or at least it's got steel reinforced in certain positions, so for the wear and tear aspect. But as far as magazines go, I love them both. I do wish that there was the ability to put a window on the AK mag. It would just be nice. I love just being able to take a peek real quick at my Gen 3 here with a window and look at that little orange, well, you can't see it right now, but on these springs in this window, there's a little orange highlighted spring where you could just tell along the side where it says 5, 10, 5, and then there's a hash which is 10, 15, there's another hash which is 20, 25, and then another hash which is 30. So or sorry, there's no hash at the bottom, but when it just goes, you know when it's full. But I love being able to peek at that orange little marker and just know kind of where my round count is. I do love these. I'm able to put our Ranger plates in the bottom, so when I put it in my plate carrier, I can easily pull these out. And the beauty of the AR-15 and caliber is, and I guess we're just going to skip ahead and get into modularity as far as modularity of caliber. The 5.56 magazines will reliably, for the most part, I would say for the most part, because some people may argue with that, but they will reliably feed 300 Blackout. So Magpul has come out with their own 300 Blackout magazine, which I own one of because it came with one of my Daniel Defense uppers, or sorry, my Daniel Defense PDW that was the chamber 300 Blackout. Ships with a PMag that is 300 Blackout, but you're able to use 300 Blackout on the same 5.56 magazines you have. And as far as swapping calibers on an AR-15, it's as simple as just popping 2 pins, so disassembling quickly. Here's my Mark 18 lower, and I can grab my 300 Blackout Daniel Defense upper here that came on my PDW, and I can very simply pop these 2 pins, and now I have a AR pistol chambered in 300 Blackout because this is a 300 Blackout barrel on this upper receiver, and everything will work identically. So the bolt carrier group, the charging handle, and the magazine. Now if I just had some sights on this or a dot on this, then I would be ready to go. Just throw some 300 Blackout on this magazine and then I'm good to go. So the modularity is clearly an advantage, I believe, because as far as the AK-47 goes, there's none of that happening here. These barrels are pressed in. You need machining, you need tooling. There's absolutely no way that I could, in my very limited tooling area, I have a tool chest and a vise, there's no way for me to change the caliber on this. That's an L, in my opinion, for why the AK falls short in that regard. And as somebody who's going to be starting out, which one you want to buy first, I absolutely say, hey, you buy you an AR-15. That way you can use the same magazines, you can use the same lower receiver, actually own one lower receiver if you'd like, and then you could put different upper receivers on it. Different barrel lengths, different calibers. There's 458 SOCOM, there's 350 Legend, there's like 6,000. It seems like there's a new caliber every week that will take the same AR lower and just swap out the barrel. Actually, it'll fit on a stock or on a mil spec upper receiver for an AR-15. So that's why I say it's best to start with the AR-15 if you're just thinking about starting out versus the AK as far as caliber goes. So, all right, guys, that's gonna be it for today as far as AR versus AK and caliber go. Please stay tuned for future videos where we're gonna go over other topics like controls, optics, suppressor readiness, things of that sort. And please stay tuned. If you like these videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, stay safe, stay dangerous. Until next time, peace.